Good evening and welcome to Sensual Talk. This is the place where we explore all things related to sensuality. I'm your host, Emanuela Fernandes. Loss of a loved one is the harsh reality of life and it affects everyone. But what happens to our sensuality after a tragic event? This evening I'm visiting a life coach and my friend Courtney McLeod to speak about sensuality after loss. Courtney, thank you so much for having me at your home.
Thank you for coming. This is exciting.
It is so exciting to be here. It's such an important subject. You know, I love kind of exploring sensuality in a very fun way. But I think that tonight's subject is very important and I am so grateful to be here. So thank you so much. I also, of course, want to thank all of you for joining us this evening. We have a lot in store for you. I believe that actually we'll be doing a little exercise today as well about, which is going to be kind of strange and fun at the same time, so you gotta stick around. I of course want to thank Joinish Media for sponsoring this evening's presentation, and really so many things to dive into, so I say we dive in. And I'm just for the purpose of framing, I'm gonna ask you to just kind of pull in a little bit closer.
Oh, okay.
You know, we are talking about a very intimate subject this evening, so I really hope that you can stick around and enjoy. So Courtney, you are a life coach, so people
Yes.
really go to you for advice on many kind of issues and subjects in life. Tonight I want to talk about sensuality after loss. First of all, do you want to share why is it such an important subject for you?
I would love to. It is such an important subject for me because it changed my life. And so when we're talking about a traumatic loss, for me it was the relationship that I had with my mother. My parents divorced when I was about 13 years old, and then from then on, I'm an only child, and so from then on, it was always just my mom and I, and we were so close. She was my role model, my best friend, my everything, my world, my biggest cheerleader. And then in 2009, I found out she had cancer, and at the time, she was living in London, Ontario. I was driving back and forth from here, so much to see her while I was starting a new job, and I was pregnant. So there was a lot going on, and when so we knew she was gonna die, and then when that day happened, it shattered me.
I'm so sorry about your loss.
Thank you.
But I know that you really remade yourself and you have engaged so many women to really kind of begin a sensual journey of their own, of rediscovery and so on and so on. And also tonight we're going to be talking about not only the subject of what happens after a loss when it's a death, but also it can be applied to the end of a relationship, which also can be a very, very emotionally devastating experience. So I'm looking forward to kind of, talking about that. So now that I know a little bit about your story, let's talk about what happens to our sensuality after a tragic loss.
Yeah. For me, I shut down. I felt like part of me had died. I lost my spark for life. So just the thought of indulging in pleasure or even seeking pleasure out it kind of became a foreign thing to me. So for me, sensuality, pleasure, it just shut down. I lost my spark for life, really, is what happened.
And you think that it manifests itself with most people in the same similar way?
Yeah, I would say to various degrees. There's always a continuum of how people deal with loss and what they go through, but I know for myself, I withdrew from people. I know that's a common thing because the more you're around people, the more they may ask, and the more you're talking about it, and yeah.
And it kind of probably interferes with your natural stage of grieving and mourning, right? When it comes to death, if there is a death and that kind of a loss. Now let's talk about the feelings of guilt, because I'm assuming that people probably feel a lot of guilt and kind of lots of really unwelcome feelings when it comes to reconnecting with their sensuality, after a loss of a loved one.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
I definitely experienced that because I had so much guilt around that. Did I see her enough? Was I there enough? Could I have done more? So there were all of those things. There was guilt around, again, going out and having fun and living my life when she's not there. So how dare I have pleasure and have fun without her and carry on like, everything's normal when it certainly wasn't. So definitely a lot of feelings around guilt, for sure.
So how do you reconnect with your sensuality after such a tragic loss? And I mean, again, for some people it's death, and for some people it really can be the end of a relationship. I mean, it can be a divorce, and I think there is a certain amount of mourning after you go through a traumatic, life-changing event like divorce or a very painful breakup. And I mean, so many of us have been there. So how do you deal with that?
Well, for me, since we were just talking about the guilt, for me, sometimes it helps people to try to look at things from a different perspective. So try perspective taking and just thinking about I remember thinking, like, what would my mom have wanted? She would want me to be living and having fun. She wouldn't want me to not be. So just reminding myself of those different perspectives and having 2 daughters at the time, what would they want from me? They would want me to be, setting the example for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So how did you reconnect with your sensuality? Because you really did something quite amazing. And I mean, you engaged so many women, as a part of your movement, which was so fantastic. And I got actually a chance to connect with Courtney's group of incredible women who are there to support each other, and they call themselves Kick-Ass Ladies of Toronto. So I was a part of it. I'm a kick-ass lady too.
Yes, you are.
So let's talk about how did you reconnect with your kind of inner sparkle?
Yeah, well, it started the journey of when I lost my mom. I also reevaluated what I was really doing with my life, and I decided I wanted more. I wanted to help people. So after working in media, I switched gears. I went back to school. I got a degree in psychology, and then I got certified as a professional coach. And while I was studying, I was still felt like a bear almost hibernating in a cave. Because I was studying, but I still wasn't having that social connection. I wasn't really like experimenting with sensuality and pleasure. So in that cave, after a year and a half to 2 years, there was just this unsettling feeling of, I want to get back out and be doing things. I want to reconnect with people. That was such an urge because it had been so long.
Right.
And that's just what makes me feel alive and that spark. And so that's what I did. I was like, I want to go axe throwing or play bubble soccer or archery tag or all these things. And I'm like, why is no one calling me? And I'm like, well, I guess if I want to do these things and I don't want to do them alone, I'm going to have to
initiate
it and do it. And then that's when 3 years ago the Kick-Ass Ladies was born.
Right. Well, congratulations on that, baby.
Thank you.
Which is so inspiring. And I mean, I know that, women just crave that connection. And I also noticed, because I am working on my second book right now, and it is, related to the subject of sensuality and pleasure and all of that. And I actually find that people who have been disconnected from their sensuality for a long time either have a hard time really reconnecting with their sensual sparkle, and they either kind of don't really know what way to go and how to really connect to that sensual sparkle and to their sensuality, and they kind of like don't even know where to start. Or people go extreme and they go axe throwing, like this woman right there, or they go bungee jumping, or so it's almost like two very extremes that people usually go to. So but that was for you. So you wanted something very extreme.
To reignite it. Yes. And then I haven't looked back.
Right. And then you've just been kind of wild ever since.
Yeah. But through that, really connecting with my inner child has definitely helped me bring back sensuality enjoyment, pleasure, playfulness, all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people associate sensuality with sexuality, and
Yes.
they're not always synonymous. I mean, those are two different things. Because sensuality is something that we're born with, and as children, we are probably the ultimate sensual beings as children, because we understand where what gives us that sensual pleasure, and we're so connected to it.
Yeah. And I love an example you wrote about of just being with your daughter and tasting snowflakes. Like something so simple of connecting with nature and experiencing sensuality that way.
Right. So I know you have an exercise. You have something to share with me. I
do.
I don't even know what it is. I know it's something kooky, but let's do it. I'm up for it. Let's do it.
Okay. Well, just of reconnecting with our inner child, of just and pleasure. Just try to. So I have with me some like giant pink bubble wrap, and just pop some, and just try not to.
You want me to pop the bubble?
Pop the bubbles, but like you can't not pop them and enjoy. I feel.
You know what? I kind of get it. Oh my God! People are looking at us and they're thinking, "So what a."
Well, they may be like, "Why don't I need to go get myself some bubble wrap?"
You know what?
I did an event with women, and I had this, and I had a whole row of it. So instead of a red carpet, I had a pink bubble wrap carpet, and people, just like them walking in, they were just, and then they started jumping, and then by the end of the night, there were somersaults, people were rolling on it, like it just allowed them to really just reconnect with that child.
That is brilliant. There's something. I mean, it does engage your sense of touch.
Yes.
Right. There's something. There's something about. I mean, there's something very actually sensual about it, because there's air, and then you release the air, and it's just plain fun. That's what you do when you're a kid, right?
Or a big kid.
This is too much fun. Courtney, this is awesome. Do you have any other advice that you can give to people who are going through very, difficult, traumatic time of their lives, whether it be a loss of a loved one or, a breakup, a divorce? How do they reconnect with their sensuality?
How they could reconnect is one thing that I learned that I didn't do was I withdrew. So to reconnect, I would say, keep those people that, you're close to, you have good connections with, just to keep dialogue and conversations happening, because I feel like sometimes it's the isolation when we isolate ourselves that can, cause a disconnect from things. So making sure that you have those conversations and everything, so that you're able to take care of yourself and.
Right.
Yeah, and again, like I mentioned, of trying different perspectives, to be able to look at your situation in a different way.
And I love that you mentioned self-care, because self-care is so important when it comes to, really reconnecting with yourself on a daily basis, especially when you're dealing with something difficult. So.
And two, being gentle with yourself, being kind to yourself, that it's okay to be sad or to feel. It's okay to feel, and just allowing yourself to go through whatever process unfolds for you, with knowing that you will reconnect and you will get there. Right. Just giving yourself permission to do it however you unfolds.
Yeah. Courtney, I want to thank you so much for having me here this evening, for sharing your story. I'm sorry about your loss, but I mean, you did amazing things with it. So, and of course, I want to thank you all for joining us this evening for this evening's presentation. I hope this is going to give you a little bit of a inspiration, a little bit of motivation. I mean, I don't know how it cannot. If you still didn't get any inspiration, I mean, get some bubble wrap. Oh my God, this is too much fun. All right, let me leave this for a little bit later. And she has much more, so I can hook you up.
Can I tell them about our tub talk that we're gonna do?
Yes, absolutely.
Is that okay?
Yes, let's go for it. Yes, we're doing a tub talk. Yeah.
Yeah, I do tub talks instead of TED Talks, it's Tub Talks, and it's instead of ideas worth spreading, it's topics worth tubbing. So we are going to come up with a topic that's worth tubbing, and what that means is we are both going to physically get into my bathtub where we will do an interview.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing I haven't done in my life yet, is, hanging out in the tub and doing an interview. I'm so excited.
It's gonna be a lot of fun.
I'm so looking forward to it. So stay tuned for that as well. Courtney, thank you so much. I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. If you want to connect with Courtney in her private practice, you certainly are welcome to do so. Go to www.kickasscoaching.ca and you will be able to find all of that information. And of course, for more of your sensual inspiration, go to dailysensuality.com and you're gonna find plenty of things to kind of rekindle your sparkle and pleasure for life. So thank you very much for joining us for Sensual Talk. I'm Emanuela Fernandes and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Oh, thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. Did you have fun?
I did.
Awesome. That's great.
Always.
It's a wrap. All right, we got great lighting here, We got to do more.